Hello everyone, how are you doing this afternoon, morning or evening, depending on where you are? My name is Makeda Valletta, also known as the Renaissance Amazon, and I'm live on my IG page. I will save this and then repost it to my YouTube page, the Renaissance Amazon. So make sure you follow me in both places because I don't always post the same thing in both places. So I have a lot on my mind today and a lot that I want to talk about. And so it's going to be, I know by now everybody knows about the Tyre Nichols situation. And just to give a little background on me, for those of you who don't know me, I am a lot of things. I have many sides to me. And I come from a family of freedom fighters, organizers, people who have, fought for the liberation and rights of workers, of Black people, of women. And when I graduated from high school, I was actually given the Public Advocate Award, okay? So I've been involved, was it Public Advocate or something with activism? I've been involved in activism since probably elementary school, okay? And for those of you who follow me, you see that I talk about these topics sometimes. And I'm a critical thinker, okay? I'm a critical thinker, I'm a researcher, and I believe in having a holistic outlook. And, when I'm analyzing a situation, I like to look at it holistically, right? And so there's many things, I have a list of things that I want to say on this, envelope, okay? A list of points. It may not be in the right order. I may jump around. There's main things that I want to say. So with this Tyre Nichols situation, first I'm going to talk about my initial thoughts and then many other things, okay? So for one, when I first found out about it, the first thing I thought, and I saw that it was a woman police chief, I thought to myself, this is what happens when you have women that's in charge, people, all my life, I have a twin brother. So I've always paid attention to what's masculine and what's feminine. Society will say that girls aren't good at certain things. And my twin brother used to tease me with that when we were kids. He doesn't really mean that. But when we were kids, he used to tease me about, oh, girls, you're girls, so you can't be on the cover of a Wheaties box and just stupid stuff like that, right? So ever since I was little, I've always been paying attention to that and always hearing people say that women can't be president and women can't be in charge because we have our menstrual cycle every month and we're too emotional. And I've made videos in the past where I've said, to me, men are the ones who are overly emotional, okay? Even all the crazy violence and abuses of power, usually it's men, okay? Usually when you have a huge scandal with a guru, it could be religion, it's usually a man that's in charge, okay? Usually when you have some sick, unbelievable scandal, it's involving men, okay? And then all the violence, all the mass shootings, whether they be mass shootings in the hood or in the school, whether it be a white person or a Black person, it's usually men, okay? Usually men that are, women go through a lot of stuff and you don't see us go shooting up shit, okay? Just going into a movie theater and shooting random people or going into a school, okay? So when I saw this Memphis police chief and I saw that she was a woman and she acted quickly, I said, okay. Then I remember seeing a lot of, but on social media, all the comments before the police chief even came out, there were all these comments from Black people basically complaining that, that these cops got arrested because, they were Black. And, so when they're Black, they get arrested quickly. And it was like kind of hypocritical to me because I'm like, haven't you all, and this is the toxic thing to me in the Black community, where, when Black men get held accountable, it's always, but if we were white, or they didn't do that to the white people. Now, of course, the white cops and white people and other races should also be held accountable. But that doesn't mean that our people shouldn't be. So are you saying, on the one hand, you complain that nothing happens fast enough, or nothing happens at all. So now something happens very quickly, and you're complaining about that. I feel like that makes no sense, and it's hypocritical. And to white people and other races who are looking at it, probably looks pretty ridiculous. The other thing, I've made many videos talking about how I cannot stand the fact that I have to hear the N-word all goddamn day, every single day. Okay? Now, it's one thing if black people want to keep that word at home amongst yourselves. But the fact that on social media, in hip hop, in movies, on a comedy stage, it don't matter, on the sidewalk, in the supermarket, every single day you hear nigga this, nigga that, nigga this, nigga that, nigga this, nigga that. And then you have black people who say it's a term of endearment, which is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Okay? Like, times that I've heard my dad use it, or me and my twin brother never use it. I've never heard my twin brother use the N-word. I don't ever use it. I have friends that use it, but my friends that use it have enough sense not to yell that shit across the supermarket. Okay? Or if they were doing a presentation, it's amongst us, right? I still don't like hearing it all the time. And to me, what that word means is black trash. It's another word for black trash. It's not a term of endearment. So if people want to talk about how, you know, the words that we say put energy out into the universe, what energy, black people, do you think that puts out in the universe to be calling each other niggas all the time? Nigga this, nigga that, nigga this, nigga that. I said before, if I was a white racist, I would say, why do you call it Black Lives Matter? Why don't you call it Niggas Lives Matter? Why don't you say that? Okay? That's what I would say. Because it's super stupid to me. Okay? And then you're calling each other that as if you don't value our own lives or whatever, you know? So to me, it's just ridiculous. So there's that. And I'll get back to that. But I have made a couple of videos talking about that. And, you know, Ben Crump is so funny because his first name is my last name. Okay, my last name is actually Benjamin. A lot of people don't know that. I used to not like him. But now I'm having like a newfound respect for him, just listening to him talk about this, right? And he talks about calling out the culture. Now, let me say something, okay? See, people see me on social media, like with everything, whether it's social media or in real life, people show you what they want to show you. Not everybody exposes their traumas and all the shit they've been through, okay? With me, I've been through some pretty traumatic situations in my life that the public doesn't know about, okay? Those who are very close to me do. One of them that a lot of people don't know about, and I said to myself that when I got to be a certain age, and right now I'm past that age, okay, I said when I got to be a certain age, I was going to write a book telling what happened to me. Because I had a very traumatic situation with the NYPD back in 2007, okay, that it threw my life, okay, I almost went to trial with the NYPD, okay, I was in court with the NYPD for a year. I practically lost everything. The NYPD busted in my apartment. There was a lot of shit that happened I'm not going to talk about in this video, okay? At the time, okay, my dad thought that, my dad he was on the front lines of the civil rights movement, but he was a black radical, okay? My mom, but since I've been living, my dad has been a journalist, okay? He was a journalist in New York City. He did not write, he wasn't a reporter, he was a journalist. So he wrote his opinions, okay? He wrote for the New York Daily News. Twice a week he had an op-ed column, so he wrote his opinion on whatever he wanted to. It was black issues, social issues, music, jazz, theater, world issues. He wrote about all those things. He wrote for Emerge magazine, he wrote for the Village Voice, he wrote for the Manchester Guardian of London. He was always on TV, speaking on roundtables. And I remember growing up, there were police, there was a kid in my neighborhood named Kevin Sedano who got shot in the back by the police. And the police lied about it. He got sent to, I live very close to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, which is now called New York Presbyterian. That's where I was born. That's where Malcolm X died. It was right across the street from the Audubon Ballroom, which is 5 blocks from where I grew up. But, and it's one of the best hospitals in the country. But instead of taking this kid to that hospital, they took him to Harlem Hospital, which is further downtown, which is, no offense, but a piece of shit of a hospital. Okay, and he would have lived if they took him to Columbia Presbyterian. But my dad had a nurse on record saying that that hospital did not take neighborhood violence type situations. But that wasn't what that was. He was shot by a cop. And I remember my dad tried to write this article and they wouldn't allow him to publish it. You had the advertisers, and there was a few articles that my dad tried to write. One of them was about the New York City taxis not stopping for black men, okay? I told you I have a twin brother. My twin brother was never a thug. He never sold drugs, okay? Now, we came from the block that I grew up on, they shot New Jack City on my block. I remember being a kid watching them film New Jack City. Juice was filmed in my building, okay? The apartment that Tupac lived in and Juice was in my building. My friend lived in that apartment, okay? So they filmed, I'm from Sugar Hill. They filmed all of that, okay? I grew up in the crack era, during the crack era. And to my understanding, crack cocaine came from around the corner from me. So even though crack devastated every city in America, it came from Harlem, okay? So I grew up around this, okay? And my dad always said, just because you're of the hood, just because you're from the hood, don't mean you have to be of the hood, okay? And we weren't, okay? My twin brother, and when I was a kid, my dad used to tell my brother, he used to say, when he was growing up, gangsters, they dressed up. They wore suits, they looked a certain way. But still, if you weren't a gangster, you didn't try to look like them or associate with that. And now, at that time, like in the 90s or whatever, you had rappers walking around with do-rags, pants sagging down, ass hanging out, talking about killing your mama and killing your kids and this and that and selling drugs. And my dad used to tell my brother, don't dress like that. Because the police, they can't tell the difference. And we all know that they can't tell the difference even when black men don't look like that. But definitely don't look like that and bring more attention to yourself, right? And when I was 9 years old, my dad taught, I had a cousin who lived in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He passed away last year. May he rest in peace, okay? My beloved cousin. His mother was a self-made millionaire. He grew up in a mansion in Pennsylvania, in Bucks County, outside of Philly. They had 2 horses, swimming pool, tennis courts, okay? And when my cousin turned 16, my aunt bought him a sports car. Now, this is in the 80s. He was 10 years older than me. So this was in the 80s. And he was dating a white girl. He went to Philly, took her to the mall. She goes in the mall. They thought he was a drug dealer because it's the 80s, okay? And they surrounded his car, okay? The whole squad team, okay? Shot at his car and everything. My cousin was traumatized by that. And I remember being 9 years old. And my dad told my brother then, at 9 years old, what to do and how to deal with the police when he gets pulled over so he doesn't get shot by accident. Now, we do all know that it's not 100% guarantee, right? But I'm just letting you know. This is just the background. Now, so when I talk about having a holistic view, there's a double-edged sword. Now, let's talk about Memphis, too. I'm from New York. I live in Chicago. A lot of people think that Chicago is the murder capital, which it's not, okay? People don't critically think, know how to research, or look at facts, okay? If you look at the most dangerous, most violent cities in America, Chicago's not in the top 20. A lot of times it's not in the top 30, okay? But you know what is? Detroit and St. Louis, they've always flip-flopped for number 1, even though I just saw an article that now New Orleans is the murder capital, okay? New Orleans is now the murder capital. And New Orleans is another city that I love to death. But New Orleans is dangerous and people get shot all the time, okay? But, so it's either Detroit, St. Louis, or New Orleans, okay? Could have changed recently. Then Memphis is right after that, okay? So Memphis is like number 3 most dangerous, most violent city in America. Then after that, you have Baltimore, okay? I've been looking at these lists every year for years. You know, what places above Chicago? Milwaukee, a lot of places in Texas. Atlanta is above Chicago, okay? So what that tells you is that this is a very violent country, okay? A lot of cities are fucking dangerous, all right? And so just like with the crime bill, I remember, I don't know if that was the 80s or 90s when the crime bill got passed, but I told you my dad was a journalist. He was also, heavy part of the civil rights movement. And my dad wanted to kill crack dealers back then, okay? He has a friend, he knows some people. I think H. Rap Brown is in jail for killing a crack dealer. My dad said all of his friends, hold on. Oh, my friend John, who I grew up with, he wrote, my dad gave me the talk about police before we talked about the birds and the bees. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And come to find, interesting, my brother has had, I don't know a black man that hasn't had issues with the police. Okay. My brother has had a gun put to his head by the police just sitting in his car. Okay. In Harlem. I remember I went to University of Delaware. And my brother went to Norfolk State, and there are times I cried myself to sleep when my twin left Delaware to drive to Norfolk because he had New York plates. And back then, New York plates going to Virginia, and you were a black man, they definitely thought you was a drug dealer. They used to pull him over on the side of the road, take all his shit out the car. You know, so the thing is that on the one hand, a lot of these cities are extremely dangerous, all right? So you have black people who will act like, oh, we don't need the police. Oh, the police need to be gone. We need to defund them, right? But on the flip side, let's not act like we don't have black men, okay, who are terrorizing neighborhoods, okay? And during, definitely had problems with cops growing up in Chicago. Yeah, during when the crime bill, you know, the crime bill was never meant. When I hear people talk about the crime bill now, especially the fact that I'm so involved in a cannabis space now, I had no idea that so many people were arrested for weed because I grew up around weed. Like my dad and all his friends smoked weed openly, like my whole life, and I never knew anybody that went to jail for weed. One of my uncles, you know, was a huge weed dealer, you know, back in the day. And so I didn't know anybody who went to jail for that. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just didn't realize that. But what I do know about the crime bill was that it was really meant for crack dealers, okay? And crack dealers were a problem. I have never thought that drug dealers, when I talk about drug dealers, I'm not talking about weed, okay? Everything else, okay? I never thought they were cool. I was not the chick that wanted to date a drug dealer, okay? I never have, to my knowledge, okay? Maybe when I was younger and naive, maybe I did and didn't know it, but I never was seeking out dudes who sell drugs. My twin brother never sold drugs, okay? And I don't look at that as being a cool thing or something to be proud of. I feel like it has destroyed, okay? It has destroyed so many black communities, okay? And to me, when people say, oh, but they put that in our community, so what? If they drop crates of crack in the community, you don't have to pick it up and sell it. And then a lot of these crack dealers would say shit like, now you hear people talking about, oh, I had to do it to survive. That's bullshit, because people who sold crack sold it to, they far exceeded what they needed to take care of their kids and to eat. They had luxury cars. They had expensive jewelry. They was going and spending $10,000, $20,000 in a strip club, okay? Just doing a bunch of bullshit, all at the expense of your community and destroying families. So to me, if you were a crack dealer, there's nothing to be proud about with that, okay? Nothing at all, okay? Nothing the fuck at all. You are part of the problem. And that's the reason why I couldn't stand NWA. Being from New York City, okay, I'm from right across from the South Bronx, where hip-hop was started. Hip-hop in New York came out of gang culture, okay? New York had a very violent gang problem. Okay, and they had enough sense, which is one thing that I love about my city, which I feel like is unique about New York, is that we have a progressive mind state, okay? I'm not saying we don't have violence and bullshit, but we are more progressive minded than a lot of people. And they said, why are we killing each other? And they just squashed that shit and transformed it into hip hop. So the previous gang members were now DJs, they were now breakers, they were now graph artists. You know what I'm saying? They took that and channeled it into something extremely positive. And when hip hop came out of New York, it was positive. I remember, now somebody told me that the first gangster rapper was from Philly or from the East Coast. I don't know, but the way I remember it being a child was NWA. That was the first time I remember seeing so-called gangster rap. And first of all, being from New York, we thought that they looked country as hell, because why do you have Jerry curls? Like, Jerry curls was never a cool thing in New York. You saw it coming to America, okay? Jerry curls was never the fucking thing, okay? People in LA can't dress, they still can't dress, I'm sorry. So we looked at them like they look corny, but again, the N-word, niggas with attitudes, that shit is the epitome of ignorant bullshit, I'm sorry. And then to be associated with street culture, right? Like, I never understood these black men who complain about the police, but yet you know that you're not doing right. It's one thing if you're a law-abiding citizen, a good black man, but if you know you involved in crack and guns, the police should be harassing your ass. Also, it is the black men like that make the rest of you vulnerable too. Now, I'm not saying that the police only mess with people they suspect of doing those things, but these special task force that the community begs for, because this Scorpion unit out of Memphis, apparently the community begged for something like that because Memphis is out of fucking control. Okay? So, but yet, I feel like in the black community, not enough black men want to hold other black men accountable. They want to make a million excuses for shit. When, to me, and then you have all these black men who blame black women, which is the dumbest shit ever. Now, a lot of you might have seen this black man who went on Tucker Carlson somehow blaming what happened to Tyre Nichols to being raised by single black mothers, which makes absolutely no fucking sense to me, okay? And this is the reason why people like Kevin Samuels, I said, you know, these black men who make a platform make a platform on, you know, insulting black women and insulting single black mothers, and single black mothers are the problem with the world. They need to focus on themselves. Black men have enough motherfucking issues amongst black men that y'all need to focus on what the problems that black men got. Being better fathers, okay? That's not my story. My dad was in my life every single day of my life. But I've known plenty. Like on Father's Day, there's so many times I felt like I'm the only one that has something good to say about my dad. Okay? There's many Father's Days that I've been around a bunch of people and they all got daddy problems. Their dad wasn't there. Their dad this, their dad that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, holding black men accountable for that. Holding them accountable for this toxic ass gang culture. Now, I'm in Chicago, a city where, to me, they take gangs too seriously, okay? People could tell me all the positive things about why gangs are created. This shit makes no sense to me, okay? It's destructive. It's a fucking problem. Like, even when I was growing up, whatever gangs we had... See, New York was so big. This is one thing I love about New York. That there were gangs, but, like, a lot of people knew nothing about them. So you could grow up in New York and be totally oblivious to the shit. It was never a thing of, oh, we can't wear certain colors, or we have to wear a hat, we can't wear a hat a certain way like it was in Chicago or like it was in LA, okay? And they're still, in 2023, on that bullshit generations in. It's a fucking problem, okay? Now, New York has gangs, but you don't meet people who are generations in, because I feel like there's been like a resurgence of it, okay? And that's a problem, because on the one hand, it's like you have black men in these gangs terrorizing the hood, terrorizing black communities, and then that gives, you know, some now you have police officers coming in, and not all of them, but, you know, terrorizing the hood, and it's a double-edged sword, okay? And to have a holistic conversation, the whole thing needs to be talked about. I was listening to this FBI expert who has investigated many of these units, and he said that these special force units that get put together, they don't work. But what he did say was that the funding for them, you know, they require funding for supervision, for the supervision and oversight and having the right officers, it requires funding. But you have black people also talking about defunding the police. Like, to me, defunding the police is not the answer, because when you have people who are underpaid, like, to me, school teachers and cops, who's going to want to do that job anymore, okay? I'm not saying I love the police. I have my own issue with the police, okay? I remember I left New York City because after I was in court with the police for a year, okay? And the attorney that I had was a major black attorney, him and his wife. They were black attorneys out of Brooklyn, and they were known for fighting the police. He was actually, my attorney was actually Tupac's attorney when he has issues in New York. Very well known, okay? And I was tested at my highest level, and I feel like I have to write a book, because I told myself I would write a book when I got to be a certain age, and it's a couple years past that, so I just have to get it done, because I feel like I have a story to tell. I'm a very private person, but then at the same time, I feel like if traumatic things happen to us like that, if we don't share it, because there's things that maybe other people can gain from it, like maybe that's the reason that we go through these things, is that so we can share it, you know? But even with that, I'm not somebody who is like anti-police, okay? And I'm not going to say we don't need them. And I'm going to say that, and I'm not going to say they're all bad. But I will say that the job that they have to always be running into danger when everybody else is running away, like even on 9/11, okay, everybody was running away. They had to run towards it, okay? So they have a job where they're risking their lives every day. And they're dealing with, a lot of times, a lot of ignorant-ass people, okay? Teachers. Being a teacher is a risk to your damn life. Every other week, a teacher's getting shot. You know what I'm saying? And teachers and cops don't get paid enough for the things that they do. Now you have a bunch of people who don't want to be cops. in Baltimore, when that Freddie Gray situation happened, and Baltimore is a terrible city, okay? I mean, there's like 5 blocks that's nice, but Baltimore is a hot mess. I haven't seen many places that's as horrible as Baltimore. And Baltimore would be like number 3 in the country when it comes to murder and crime. And, you know, that situation where you have black people burning up the communities and stuff like that, and then the cops in Baltimore stopped responding to calls after that. And you know what happened? The murder rate in Baltimore went through the motherfucking roof. So black people could say, oh, I don't like the cops, we don't need the cops. See what happens when there's no cops, how much worse it gets. And even with all the things that's happened with the police, I'm still more afraid of hood-ass black people in the hood than I am of the police. Okay, so I'm just going to say that. Now, okay. Ben Crump, he talks about calling out the culture. All right. Now, he talked about calling out the culture. Now, we know that there's this police culture that's like a gang. And what happened to me is a slightly different take on all of this, okay? It's a totally different. I have so much to say about that. I don't even want it, because what happened to me had a lot to do with the church and the police, okay? So, and the power that the Roman Catholic Church had on the police, especially in New York, where a lot of the cops were Italian and Irish and shit like that, right? Oh yeah, there's so many things I want to say. Okay, let me go back. So when I was in high school, okay, I went to New York City public schools my entire life. I received a great education. I loved growing up in New York. My schools were ethnically and socioeconomically mixed, okay? And my high school, like back then, I don't know if this day still exists, but October 22nd was National Police Brutality Day, October 22nd. Everybody would wear all black, and they would walk out to school. My teachers did it, okay? And most of my teachers were white, okay? All walked out to school. Now, it wasn't focused on a black and white thing. It was National Police Brutality Day. Because police brutality, and I've been saying this, I made videos about this a couple years ago. Police brutality is not a black and white issue, okay? It's and it's not just an American issue either, okay? I keep hearing these stupid ass black men who don't fucking have critical thinking skills, don't know shit about what's going on in the world, who say that they want to leave America because of what happens. And it's like, do you understand? Like, do you travel anywhere? Because the police in a lot of other countries are way scarier than they are in the US. A lot of the shit that happens in America, like even with Rodney King, which I hate when they compare what happened with Tyre Nichols to Rodney King, because to me it's a horrible analogy, because Rodney King was drunk and leading the police on a high-speed chase, which to me is extremely dangerous. I don't know what the fuck it is with LA and wanting to go on these high-speed chases, but it's dangerous. Because when you go on a high-speed chase, you're putting other people's lives at risk. And I believe when Rodney King was doing that, he had other passengers in the car. But you could have killed somebody's mother or somebody's kids with that shit. You know what I'm saying? So when the police tell you pull over, pull the fuck over. I'm not with the whole leading the police on a high-speed chase shit. If that shit that happened to Rodney King had happened in Nigeria, or had happened in Jamaica, that shit wouldn't even be on the news, okay? Now, do you remember a couple of years ago when they had like the SARS protest in Nigeria? And what they were protesting about in Nigeria was the brutal treatment by the police. You think about Nigeria, okay? Would you rather deal with Nigerian police or American police? Would you rather deal with Jamaican police? Okay, my Jamaican friends have said in Jamaica, your ass might never be seen from again, okay? You have certain encounters with the Jamaican police. And then you got to pay them off. All these foreign countries, Mexico, like, I don't like that shit. You know, it's like a known thing. Like, you go to Mexico, you go to these countries, you got to keep cash on you because you got to pay off the police even when you didn't do anything. Even when you didn't even do anything, you got to pay the police, okay? And so the thing is that police brutality, whether it be Russia, it don't matter. It's a worldwide problem. It's not just an American problem, okay? And I remember back then, in Haiti, they just killed 14 cops within a week. Haiti's a whole nother conversation, because I've been getting into some debates with Haitians lately, and I love Haitians, but that's a whole nother conversation. But, and I remember when I was in high school, there were Asians in New York that got killed by the police. It wasn't just black people, okay? Somebody said, in Africa, you are a man, essentially. It's still neo-colonial and exploitative, but there are things you can mitigate better. In America, you essentially aren't a person. That's a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry. If that was true, why are there so many Africans leaving Africa and coming to America and coming to Europe, okay? Why? All right? That's a bunch of bullshit. The police in Nigeria are the worst in the world when it comes to brutality, okay? And I've listened to Black Americans who moved to Ghana and talked about getting into a car accident, okay? Somebody hit their car and just left the scene, you know, and the cops just allowed that to happen, and how they have to pay the police for every single thing, even when they didn't do anything. That's a bunch of bullshit, okay? That it's just idealistic idea. And this is another thing. When people act like there's some utopia on earth where you're not going to have any problems, life is motherfucking tough, okay? You're going to have issues wherever you go, all right? But one thing that made Black Americans unique, okay, is that we didn't flee the country. Now, not a lot of Black Americans don't come from families who risk their lives to fight to change laws. I do, okay? So I especially feel a certain way about that. Whether it be my mom, you know, who works for the UAW, which is the organization. Martin Luther King was very much involved with the UAW prior to his death. So my mom is very well known in the labor world for fighting for the rights of workers. She's a very high up there organizer. And, you know, whether it be, you know, my dad and the people that I grew up with who sacrificed a lot. I know a lot of people my dad's age who didn't do shit during that time, but they still benefit from it, right? But just generally speaking, Black Americans, we didn't flee the country the way Caribbeans might or Africans might. Because you know what? You can't make your country better if you run. America's not perfect. No country is perfect. There's no country that's perfect. Every country has its pros and cons. But you know what? I'll take the cons in America than over other countries. This is where I'm born and raised, and I care about this country, and I'm not going to just run someplace else, okay? So, now, calling out the culture. Another thing I want to point out. Now, I might offend some people, and I'm sorry, but this is honestly how I feel. I saw that 3 of those cops were members of Omega Sci-Fi, right? And I do know some people, so I do know some people who are in some of these Greek organizations, and some people who I respect. So no offense to you, but I just gotta say this, okay? This is just how I feel. I feel like those Greek organizations, the Black fraternities and sororities, even though I have a soft spot for alphas, because alphas, Alpha Psi Alpha, because they are the nerdy type, okay? All the alphas I know are incredibly intelligent and carry themselves well. Where I feel like the Kappas, no offense, but they act pretty gay. And I'm not homophobic because I'm half gay myself, but gay men just aren't my thing. And the Qs, they seem like they become Qs just so they can act wild, okay? A lot of Qs, because I feel like with most of the fraternities and sororities you have, and this is not 100%, but you have a lot of people who are nobodies, okay? They wanted to be cool on campus, so they joined this Greek organization, and now they're the cool people on campus, and they can party walk at parties and shit. The Qs, I feel like, is an exception, because I feel like a lot of Qs might have already been popular, because you have a lot of football players who are Qs, and I feel like, you know, football players are already, you know, kind of immune to a lot of pain and roughness. Like, they already got that in them. And it just gives them an excuse to just be wild. That's how I feel about Qs, right? And when people talk about the community service they do, you don't need to be in a Greek organization to do community service. Now, nobody in my family was ever in, everybody in my family went to HBCUs except me, okay? My mom went to Wilberforce in Ohio. My dad went to Florida A&M, even though neither one of my parents graduated. But both of them ended up being professors, okay, with no degrees. My mom a professor at Cornell University, and, you know, in her 50s or 60s, 50s, I think. And my dad a professor at UMass when he was in his 20s, okay? Neither one of them graduated from college. But many members of my family went to Howard, went to Lincoln, went to, I don't know, my brother went to Norfolk State. Like, I'm like the only one who didn't go to HBCU. I wanted to. But when I was majoring in, HBCUs didn't have it, okay? And when I remember when I was in college, I did pledge Delta I was online for Delta, okay? Delta Sigma Theta for a couple of weeks. And of course I knew that hazing existed, right? But when I was actually in it, And they didn't do anything super horrible to me. But before it got super horrible, I left. Because I'm like, my self-esteem is too high for that shit. They can say that they break you down and build you back up. To me, life will break you down and build you back up. You don't need some artificial situation of people power tripping on a college campus. You over here losing weight, fucking up your body, okay? You over here doing bad in your classes. I was a biotechnology major. I had some real shit to do. Like, it's just stupid to me, okay? Just to be a part of a certain organization. And I concluded back then that something has to be wrong with your self-esteem to allow yourself to go through that. I really believe that, okay? I don't respect that shit. I don't respect that hazing process at all. And there's a lot of deaths that have occurred because of Greek organizations, okay? And serious injuries. And so that whole mindset, you know, and the fact, and I remember, like, I'm the kind of person, you fuck with me, I fuck with you. Because I remember when I left that shit, I fucking told the university what the fuck they were doing. I didn't give a fuck. Okay, I will snitch, all right? So, the thing is that 3 of those officers were members of Omega Psi Phi, the most rowdy Greek organization that act buck Billy Wild and fucking nuts, all right? So, when we talk about calling out the culture, you know, people say that police culture is like a gang. A lot of these black Greek organizations are like a gang too, okay? They are. And so that to me says a lot. I have since heard, now I don't know, you know, the facts on this. But I knew that when I saw this black female police chief, I said, they're going to find a way to be mad at black women. Because I feel like whenever a black woman holds black men accountable, everybody acts like this black woman hates black men. And there are a lot of black people who swear there's this conspiracy against black men. And black men are always a victim, okay? And when a black woman holds black men accountable, now she hates black men. Okay, they do that with Oprah. They do that, you know, so many people. So when I saw this black female police chief, I said, I bet you that's going to happen. Now, first it started with the dude who won the news talking the shit he was talking about, blaming what happened on black women, single black mothers, which made no sense to me. Okay, and but I've since, and I don't know, because I kind of waited to speak about this because I wanted to see until, you know, more facts came out. But I've heard that this Memphis police chief came from Atlanta, and there was an organization in Atlanta, Red Dog or some shit, that was similar to this. Now, one of my best friends who's in his mid-50s, he's 56 years old, and he was living in Atlanta in the 90s or early 2000s. And he talked about that organization, that special units in Atlanta. And, you know, I asked him, you know, were they beneficial at all? Did they do any good things? And he told me yes, right? So the same thing is true with the Scorpion unit. They are known, okay, to be, apparently there's been many complaints about them, but at the same time, they've also gotten rid of a lot of guns. They've confiscated certain things. Same thing with the stop and frisk in New York, okay? There was a lot of black people who were upset about stop and frisk in New York, but the fact remains that when stop and frisk was happening, gun violence was down, way down, okay? So to me, it could be a little hypocritical when it's like black people are complaining about these things, but then at the same time, we have all this guns and gang violence and dumb, ignorant shit happening in the hood. They're both a problem. It's a holistic problem that we have to address, okay? And leaning to just one side, like all the police are bad, you know, that's not healthy. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, these are just thoughts. Now, you know, something that I talked about this, and I said this, you know, we go through, sometimes I feel like if we don't discuss our traumas, somebody said all police are bad. That's bullshit. Okay. Sometimes I say that I feel like if we don't discuss our traumas, like what's the point of going through them, right? So one thing, I mean, I talked about this in a video once. I don't talk about it a lot, but 12 years ago, I lost a son, right? He actually stopped breathing in my arms, all right? And I remember the heartbreak, okay, that I felt. And I remember thinking to myself, as traumatic as it was, I thought to myself, I really, at that moment, and I think about this all the time. At that moment, I felt for all the parents that lose their children, okay? And how much worse it is. As painful as it was for me, he was, had just been born. He was a newborn. He wasn't here for that long, right? So I thought about the parents who've had their kids for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years. To me, or whatever, I felt like that is more painful. Because now you have all these memories, you know what I'm saying? You have these things. And I felt for all the parents at that moment. And I go back to that moment, I think about it all the time. You know what I'm saying? When I see people lose their children. Unfortunately, in my family, long life is a thing in my family, okay? But at the same time, there's a number of people in my family that have lost their kids. Like, my dad lost a daughter in 2021. I have a sister that passed away. I didn't really talk about that publicly. People that know me know these things, you know what I'm saying? So my dad had to unfortunately experience the loss of a child. I told you my cousin that passed away last year, who had gotten pulled over, in the 80s in Philly. He passed away last year, and his mother, who is 83, she was devastated. I have another cousin whose daughter, her 6-year-old daughter, got hit by a car in Charlottesville, Virginia. Her name is Charlotte. She got hit by a car in Charlottesville, Virginia with her mother and 10-year-old sister right there, right around the corner from where they lived, okay? So I have my mom's other sister. My mom is the youngest of 7, and my mom is 73. So all of her siblings are like in their 80s and stuff like that. And my mom has another sister who lost a son who, at 40 years old, he just dropped dead. He was my cousin Scott. He was very healthy, but I think it was some type of medication, okay, that did that. So it's like, the loss, it's like life is unpredictable, okay? Like, anybody can lose a child. Anything can happen. We just don't know what life is going to throw at us. You know what I'm saying? Which is why, to me, I think I really have a problem with people who aren't grateful. I have a problem with people who have good kids, but they complain about them. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just don't know. And two things I really don't like, okay? 2 things I really do not like is people dying too soon because they were murdered. I can't stand fucking murder, okay? I have no sympathy for murderers unless you murdered somebody for a good reason, like somebody attacked your child, somebody attacking you, you're defending your life. But just murdering people, I can't stand that shit. If I was in charge, I would torture the fuck out of people who murder, okay? Including that 6-year-old boy in Milwaukee who shot his mother. Him too, off of his motherfucking head, okay? That's how I feel. Now, when it comes to people who are, and the other thing is people who die too soon because of bad health. You know what I'm saying? For those of you who follow me know, I'm hugely into health, right? And I know a lot of things. And a lot of chronic diseases and stuff that people are dying from can be prevented. And it doesn't sit right with me when I see somebody who was close to me who died and I felt like I could have helped them, right? And now, with me knowing the things I know about cannabis medicine, right? I mean, I've always been studying cancer. And there's many components when it comes to cancer, whether it be prevention or treating cancer. There's many, many components. But using cannabis, it can be extremely effective with so many things. And I think about the people that I know that died of cancer in the past, few years. And I'm like, the things I know now, I feel like I really could have helped them. You know what I'm saying? So that just bothers me. You know what I'm saying? I just don't like those 2 things. And so, anyhow, I'm going to also say, the other thing I wanted to point out, Kanye West, okay? You guys know that I've made so many videos about Kanye. I can't stand that little bitch-ass narcissist. I can't. Yes, he makes good music. I can separate the artist from the person, okay? Because as fucked up as R. Kelly was, I do like his music. I'm not going to say I wouldn't listen to it. Sometimes I have that conflict because Tory Lanez also makes amazing music. I can't stand that little man. So it's like I really don't want to listen to his music, and I really don't. But like, if a song comes on the radio, he does make good music. So a lot of times you have Bill Cosby. I think that he's a sleazeball, but the Cosby Show was an excellent show, and I would still watch it. So there's a difference between that individual and the artist. So Kanye makes good music, but he's a narcissistic asshole. And there's nothing about him. The black people that defend Kanye and act like, Kanye has said he's a problem, okay? So for those of you who are upset about Tyre Nichols, but you're also a Kanye fan, or you support Kanye and you think he's so deep, do we see Kanye saying anything? He never says anything about shit like this. But Kanye will come out and say that George Floyd didn't really die because, they had their knee on his neck. He'll come out and say shit like that. Okay? Kanye's over here, the shit that he be bitching about has nothing to do with black people or any people. It has to do with him and his fucking contracts and his money. Shit that shouldn't matter to any of us. Okay? Shit that's not even that fucking important. And then, please, can somebody tell me why Kanye was doing concerts to free Larry Hoover? Because when I looked up Larry Hoover, I didn't understand why the fuck he needed to be out of jail. I don't understand what it is with a lot of the black community looking up to these fucking gang leaders and drug dealers. If you have many deaths, many people have died because of you deserve to stay in jail. Okay? And in America, you could get a PhD in jail. You can't do that in other countries. I want a PhD. I'm working my ass off right now to pay for my master's degree. But if you go to jail, you can get a fucking PhD. Like, a lot of countries not even like that. To me, American prisons seem like they might be too fucking nice to people because a lot of people don't seem to have a problem going to the shit. Okay? But why was Kanye doing a concert to free Larry Hoover? Why? Out of all of the fucking things going on in the world, all the people that you could be fighting for, why the fuck was he trying to get Larry Hoover out of jail? Can somebody please explain that to me? So you said if I'm not from Chicago, I wouldn't understand. So if you're from Chicago, explain it then. And and a lot of times I don't even want to say sometimes the way I really feel because I feel like people in Chicago could be very sensitive. And, I'm not trying to have any problems with people, but can you please tell me why? Okay? Because there's nothing respectable or commendable about that. You have on the one hand, black people complaining that the police are terrorizing our hood. But then on the other hand, you got black drug dealers and gang leaders terrorizing the hood. Which then the people in the community beg for more police presence. They beg for these specialized units. And then you have people who get power hungry, okay, which are usually men, okay. I'm not going to say women never do, but 99% of the time it's men, okay. Get power hungry and then they start abusing this shit. So it's just hypocritical. Then you got black people in the hood trying to say, oh, you're not supposed to snitch and all this other stuff. Then people are over here talking about free Young Thug. Fuck Young Thug, okay? And listen, I don't get monetized on YouTube, okay? YouTube doesn't pay me $1 because I say what I want. People that get monetized on YouTube, they can't say this, they can't say that. I'm just going to speak freely, okay? For me, everything's not about money. Now, fuck Young Thug, like I said. Young Thug apparently got 50 deaths. That's because of him. Okay? Atlanta is dangerous as hell. Okay? People over here have been moving to... I lived in Atlanta in 2012. And there was this myth that Atlanta was a better place to raise kids than New York. Okay? And that... no, it's not. Atlanta is way more dangerous than New York. Way more dangerous. Way fucking more dangerous. And when I lived in Atlanta, I lived in Midtown. And dude, you still didn't answer my question about if I'm not from Chicago, I wouldn't understand. I'm still waiting for you to answer the question. Still waiting. So anyhow, when I lived in Midtown, I lived right across the street from Piedmont Park, in the gay area, okay, which seemed like a safe area. But I remember my landlord, when I signed a lease, he kept telling me, if you feel like somebody's following you, there's a man on the first floor that is armed. You can call him. And he kept telling me that. And I kept saying, why do you keep telling me that? Is it that dangerous? And he was like, yeah, Atlanta is that dangerous. And that was like my first introduction and awakening of how dangerous Atlanta was. Then I had a client from Atlanta, this woman who she had lived in New York. I think she was married to a dude from New York. She had lived in New York and she said she felt way safer in New York than she did in Atlanta. Then one of my dear friends, he passed away about 4 years ago. I miss him all the time. Sometimes when I doubt myself with certain things, I think about him because he would have told me, fuck those people. But my friend Willie, he was one of my favorite people, and I don't like a lot of people, okay? And funny enough, a lot of my best friends are men. But he was a big, strong dude, okay? He's from Mississippi. Tall, strong, bone structure, muscle. He used to work out and train in martial arts. And I remember he lived in this big house in a cul-de-sac. And he had 2 dangerous dogs. He had a gun on him at all times, okay? And he told me, okay, he didn't know anybody in Atlanta that hadn't been held up at gunpoint. And that he always would talk about how dangerous it was, okay? So let's not act like Atlanta's not fucking dangerous, all right? Let's not act like that. And then you got these rappers who name themselves this thug, Lil Murder, C Murder, Murder this, Murder that, Thug this, Thug that. They name the record labels Death Row, Murder Inc. And then when they get in trouble for some shit, oh, I'm not a murderer. Oh, how stupid are you? Are you guys really that dumb? Obviously you are. You name your fucking, your rap names and your labels, murder this, murder that, gangster this, thug that. And then y'all want to act so innocent when a lot of times you guys are responsible for a lot of shit. I can't even keep track with all the motherfucking rappers that getting arrested on RICO charges. And one thing about New York doesn't fucking play, okay? You have Fetty Wap now, he's in jail for like fucking facing 40 years. He's in jail for a long time doing dumbass shit, okay? This other rapper who I barely even know, Wyan Melly or Wyan something. I was watching a story about him last night, another fucking idiot. Okay, you have all these, then you had Casanova in Brooklyn, who's involved, like, are you people dumb? Let me tell you something. I told you, my dad was a black radical in the 60s, right? He was a part of Revolutionary Action Movement, RAM. This is the organization that Assata Shakur came out of. My dad was born in 1942, okay? So he'll be 81 years old this year. My dad told me that back then, when they had meetings, okay, they would turn the music up really, really loud. So they thought whoever was trying to listen to them couldn't hear it because they had the music up so loud. But back then, in the 60s, all that COINTELPRO, my dad he was a part of that, okay? He was a part of that, those recordings and all of that. So he told me they thought that they couldn't be heard because they turned the music up. But back then in the 60s, they had the equipment to just remove all that shit and hear your voice clearly. So if they could do that in the 60s, what makes these dumbasses think that in 2023, 2022, 2021, 2019, what the fuck ever, that they can't track your ass? That you can get away with this shit? Please tell me. And I'm still waiting for the dude that told me I'm not from Chicago, so I wouldn't understand. I'm still waiting for you to answer. Obviously, you don't have a good answer yourself, okay? It's easy convincing social media you're a gangster. It's hard convincing the feds you're not. Exactly. I don't feel sorry for none of these dudes. And you will never see me say free Young Thug. First of all, Young Thug doesn't look like he's going to live a long life. You guys know I'm into health. I could look at people and just tell you're not healthy. Young Thug's skin looks horrible. Young Thug looks like he grew up drinking soda and Doritos and drinking canola oil. Okay, that's what he looks like. He looks completely unhealthy. All right. And if you read Young Thug's bio, he comes from a family of criminals. A family of criminals. All his siblings been in jail for drug dealing and shit like that. Okay? And it's so funny. I'm so clueless to the gangster stuff. I didn't even know about BMF until recently. Okay? I did not know anything about them. I've never been paying attention, or I was never fascinated with gangsters. Okay? Never fascinated with gangsters at all. Okay? Or drug dealing organizations and all that shit. Never. So I hear, people saying that, like, this BMF group, that they were nonviolent, which is kind of hard for me to believe when you were involved in crack dealing or in coke dealing, okay, in all over the country like that. But, and the thing is that coke, even though I'm not a fan of that either, but for some reason, the violence that came around crack, okay, was not really around coke or heroin. So I don't know what that's about, okay? But I'm just saying that a lot of these people, this dude said, I don't go back and forth, but much respect to your opinion. That's because your ass doesn't have an answer. That's because you don't fucking have an answer, okay? So telling me I'm not from Chicago, I wouldn't understand. Maybe you're just stupid, okay? I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. Because if you felt like that, I didn't understand because I'm not from Chicago, then answer the fucking question. Why did Kanye West, why was he having fucking concerts to get Larry Hoover out of jail? Okay? Like, it makes no fucking sense. And I'm going to call out stupid shit when I call it out. There's nothing commendable about that. At the same time, Kanye's running around talking about Harriet Tubman didn't free any slaves and saying all this stupid ass shit. Fuck Kanye. Okay? Shit. Anyhow, all of this shit, the gangster shit, the gang shit, the crack dealing shit, I don't respect any of it, and it's a problem. And so I feel like black men, because black women can't do all the work, okay? Because a lot of times we at the front lines of organizing, okay? Black men, y'all got to step up and do some work in the communities. Y'all got to, stop acting like all this gang shit and this gangster shit is so fucking cool, okay? And that, telling people, the no snitch shit. I'm glad people snitched on Young Thug. Snitching all of them, okay? If Young Thug is responsible for 50 deaths, I'm not going to commend anybody. I'm not going to downgrade anybody that snitches on him or whatever. Like, they need to be in jail. What is this with the so much of the black community that feels like we just need to be defending murderers and people who are destroying their community? But then at the same time, you're upset with the police. Okay? They're both kind of guilty. They both need to be held accountable. Now, the thing I was going to say about this police chief in Memphis, and I said that when I saw that a black woman was in charge, I said they're going to find a way to be mad at black women. That has happened. But what I have seen is that somebody else said, I feel the same way you do about this degenerate gangster life. Yeah. I know I have every right to my opinion, okay? I know I do. But I talk facts. You obviously don't have any facts, okay? Like, if you don't have anything intelligent to say, just shut the fuck up. Because what the fuck are you here for? Like, what's your purpose? Okay? What's your purpose? Most people aren't even strong enough to speak the truth and stand up for shit. You sound like a follower, okay? A dusty, all right? Anyhow, and a lot of times, I have to, my dad has also told me many times to be careful sometimes because, like, there's a lot of crazy men in this world. So sometimes I don't always say what I want to say because a lot of dudes are overly emotional. And I might hurt one of your little feelings. And then you might see me somewhere and there's a problem. But I'm sorry. I just mean what I said. Okay? You keep writing and shit to me telling me that I have a right to my opinion. Of course. Can't you tell that I'm smart? Who the fuck doesn't know they have a right to their opinion? Who the fuck doesn't know that shit? You can waste time writing that shit. But you still can't answer the question about why Kanye was trying to free Larry Hoover. So if you can come out your face, if you could take a little fingers and type that I'm not from Chicago, so I wouldn't understand, and then you can keep typing bullshit, telling me what I already fucking know, that I have a right to my opinion, but you can't answer the question, dude, you're stupid, okay? Go somewhere. Go suck a dick and shut up. Anyhow, all of this shit is stupid, okay? I don't look at any of it as being cool. As a woman, I would never understood girls that are fascinated with drug dealers and want to date them because I know my ass is not getting shot or going to jail, being around the wrong dude who's caught up in some shit, okay? I have better sense than that. And, the video is coming to an end. I feel like I got out all the points that I needed to make. Oh, yeah, but the last thing I was going to say about this female police chief is that they say that she came from Atlanta, from this Red Dog unit or something. And they say that she got fired there and that she was associated with scandal there. I don't know if that's true. I hope it's not true, but I've heard that. But what I do know is the swift action that we saw. There's a woman in control. And we need to have more women in control, holding men accountable for their bullshit. And holding people accountable for their bullshit. Okay? And, angry for what? Do your research before you speak of Chicago politics. Dude, shut the fuck up. You ain't said one thing yet, okay? You obviously don't research or read. Just shut up. The gang shit in Chicago is stupid. Kanye is a narcissistic idiot. Kanye is an embarrassment to who the fuck his mother was. And Kanye's dumbass trying to have a motherfucking concert to free Larry Hoover is the most idiotic shit ever. In a city like Chicago, where when I moved here in 2017, I heard a bunch of people in Chicago whining and complaining about how some of the biggest gang leaders are getting out of jail. Now there's a bunch of murders going to happen this summer. You guys have a bunch of toxic bullshit about you, okay? And I don't respect that shit. And how is Kanye a help? Kanye's a fucking idiot. And he's had nothing to say about any of this stuff. And according to, I bet you Kanye would find a reason to act like this shit is not even that bad. All right? So I'm done saying what I'm going to say. I'm done saying what I'm saying. Okay? Period. And if more comes out, I may have more to say. Have a good day, people. Peace.